You hear the phrase Internet of Things thrown around all the time, right? It just screams 21st century, smart homes, connected cars, all that stuff. But what if I told you the real story of IoT didn't start with Wi-Fi, but with, telegraph wires? Yeah, its history is way, way deeper and honestly a lot weirder than you probably think.
So, just for a second, take a guess. When do you think the very first thing was actually connected to a network? Was it the early 2000s with those first smart fridges? Or maybe the 90s when the web was just exploding everywhere? Okay, got a date in your head?
How about 1832? No, that's not a typo. Seriously, the fundamental idea behind your smart speaker was being worked out almost 200 years ago. I know it sounds crazy, so let's unpack how that is even possible.
To really get what IoT is, we have to forget about our smartwatches and all that for just a minute. We need to go all the way back to the very first moment we figured out how to make some inanimate object talk over a long distance.
So check this out. In 1832, a Russian inventor creates an electromagnetic telegraph. A year later, a couple of German scientists send a coded message over 100 meters of wire. Now, to them, this was pure magic, making an object communicate. And if you think about it, that's the exact same core idea as your smart speaker today, sending coded information across a network. This was the original blueprint.
Okay, now let's jump forward about a century, all the way to 1974. See, you can have 1,000 amazing devices, but if they're all speaking different languages, you don't really have a network. You just have chaos. TCP/IP was the answer. It basically became the universal translator, the one common language that allowed all these different computers and eventually different things to actually understand each other. Without this set of rules, the internet part of Internet of Things would be totally impossible. So once we had this common language, it was only a matter of time before innovators started connecting, well, pretty much anything they could get their hands on. And the very first connected things were wonderfully practical and, let's be honest, a little bit weird.
And here they are, the unlikely pioneers of the whole IoT revolution: a toaster, a coffee pot, and one of the first wearable computers. Now, what's so important to get here is that these weren't some billion-dollar corporate projects. Nope, they were built by clever, curious people who were just trying to solve some very simple, everyday problems.
Just take the toaster. In 1990, basically as a dare for a conference, a programmer named John Romkey connected it to the internet so he could turn it on and off from his computer. But here's the best part. He didn't stop there. He later rigged up this tiny robotic crane to actually drop the bread in. That little addition made it the world's first truly automated internet-powered appliance. Okay, then just 3 years later, we have another stroke of genius that was born out of pure frustration. Researchers at Cambridge were getting so tired of walking all the way down the hall to the coffee room, only to find the pot was empty, so what did they do? They pointed a camera at it and broadcast the image to the building's internal network. It's just the perfect IoT origin story, using connectivity to solve a simple, very human problem. So, we had all these connected devices starting to pop up, but we didn't really have a grand vision for it all, or even a name for what was happening. It really took a couple of key thinkers to step back and actually define the future that was unfolding right in front of them. Mark Weiser was so far ahead of his time, it's not even funny. He dreamed up this idea he called ubiquitous computing, a world where tech isn't just something on your desk, but it's literally woven into the walls, the furniture, your whole environment. And to prove his point, in 1998, he built a water fountain outside his office that was connected to the stock market. I love this. When the market was up, the fountain shot high. When it was down, it just trickled. Think about that for a second. He was making digital data physical and ambient. That's the absolute soul of IoT. And then, in 1999, the movement finally got its name. And it didn't come from some fancy academic paper. It came from a business presentation. This guy, Kevin Ashton at Procter & Gamble, was trying to convince executives to use these little RFID tags to track lipstick. He needed a cool, catchy buzzword for his slides, and just came up with Internet of Things. And that name, well, that was a game changer. It took the whole idea out of the world of hobbyist toasters and framed it as a powerful tool for global business. Right. So once Ashton gave it a name and a really clear business case, the floodgates just blew wide open. The new millennium brought an absolute explosion of innovation, as this whole concept went from a cool theory to a massive reality at an incredible speed.
I mean, you can just see the acceleration right here on this timeline. We go from the first internet fridge in 2000 to creator tools like Arduino to massive industry adoption, all leading up to wild stuff like Google Glass. In just a little over a decade, all the pieces of the puzzle just started snapping into place like crazy. So what was it that lit the fuse for this explosion? Well, it was really a perfect storm of three things happening at once. One, you had big companies like LG putting the first real consumer devices on the shelves. Two, cheap, powerful creator boards like Arduino and Raspberry Pi meant that suddenly anyone could build their own IoT device. And three, you had huge players like the US Department of Defense and Walmart adopting RFID on a massive scale, proving to everyone this was not just a gimmick. And all of this led to a massive, massive tipping point right around 2010. This was the year it became official. The number of devices connected to the internet finally, for the first time ever, surpassed the number of people on Earth. The Internet of Things was no longer some future concept. It was our present reality. And that very same year, China made it clear this was globally important by announcing a national strategy completely dedicated to IoT. But of course, with billions of devices from thousands of different companies, all flooding online, a brand new challenge popped up. How in the world do you get them all to speak to each other? How do you create a truly seamless, interconnected world out of all that potential chaos? And that is exactly the problem that organizations like the Global Standards Initiative are trying to solve. You can think of them as like international diplomats for your devices. Their entire mission is to create that common language, that universal set of rules, so your Apple Watch can actually talk to your Google thermostat without any problems. This is the really crucial, behind-the-scenes work that's trying to make Mark Weiser's dream of a truly seamless smart world a reality for all of us. So when you really look back at it, it's just an incredible journey. From a single telegraph wire back in 1832 to a world that now has more smart devices than people. The foundation has been laid over almost 2 centuries. The global network is live. So the only question left is the most exciting one. Now that we've connected everything, what on earth do we do next?